Hi, everyone. Welcome back to It's All Light with I'm Natalie Baugh. And today we have our first ever podcast guest named Daniel. Daniel, say hello.
Hey guys, I'm excited to be here.
And we can't wait to dive into a topic Daniel is passionate about. But before we do that, we're going to get to know him a little bit. He grew up in New Jersey. What city?
I grew up in Moorestown. It's about 15 minutes outside of Philadelphia. So it's in the southern Jersey. It's really confused with Morristown all the time. So it's different, but it's,
Moorestown.
yeah, Moorestown.
And you told me you had a black belt in karate at the age of 14. Holy cow. So I bet you could take down anyone who gave you any
Not
kind of
anymore.
problems.
If I was 14, then yeah, I could. But
Wow,
no,
that's
it's
fun.
yeah, no, it was a good time. Me and my siblings were kind of motivated, so we got involved in that, and then somehow at 14, I earned it.
Wow, that's amazing. How many siblings do you have?
So there's four of us total. So I have three siblings. I have an older brother, an older sister, and then a younger brother.
Nice. And you said your favorite food is barbecue ribs. Okay, give us a plug here. Where do we go to get the best barbecue ribs? Unless you
Oh
make them
goodness.
yourself, because then we'll all just
Yeah,
have to come over.
I feel like yeah, you guys are just gonna have to come try mine. I mean, I'm sure they're not the best, but they're the best in my mind.
Nice. What else did you like to do growing up?
So let's see. When I was a kid, I was super involved in the scouting program when I was a youth, and so I participated in all the merit badges and scout camps and various learning opportunities there. I when I was 14, I also became a lifeguard, so I was
Nice.
really into swimming and did that a whole bunch. I played soccer and basketball and volleyball and did cross country and um, one thing that is kind of unique that my younger brother and I were really into was ping pong. So we would
Fun.
we would come home every day after high school and we'd play a couple hours of ping pong just down in our basement.
That's
And
awesome.
it ended up, yeah, it ended up being a good thing. I mean, down the road we can talk about this later, but I ended up joining the BYU ping pong team and playing competitively across states and stuff. So
Wow. Oh, I can't
um,
wait to hear more about that. That's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah, so just kind of random sports and hobbies growing up. When I was really little, my mom's really into horses, and so we ended up taking horseback riding lessons for like 3 years in New
Wow.
Jersey, of all places.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah,
I'm
so
a
just
wannabe
kind of,
cowgirl over here, so I'm jealous. I want a horse.
yeah, exactly. No, seriously though, they're so fun.
That's cool. And what are you up to now?
So let's see. I graduated about 2 years ago from BYU, got my master's degree in tax accounting.
Wow.
So I worked in a tax practice in Lehigh for a couple years, and then at the beginning of this year, I started my own tax practice, along with a couple other side hustle fun businesses that I'm sure we'll talk about
Wow, that's
down the road.
awesome. Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Daniel, what do you light up about? Give us a plug.
Yeah, so I'd say if I were to pick a couple things that I light up about, I would say the first and foremost, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Just absolutely, I love it, and I can have conversations for hours and hours about it. I just find that it's so simple and in its own complex way, but it's very simple and it has the answers to everything that this life could possibly throw at you. And it's
Mhm.
just fascinating to find the little nuggets of truth that God gives to us. And then the other thing that I would light up about is competition, and
Mm.
that I can just elaborate on that more as we go. But I just find that a healthy dose of competition in our lives is capable of allowing us to do things that before we didn't think we were capable of doing. And so I absolutely love anything that's competitive, anything that's going to push me to be a little bit better, to try a little bit harder.
I think that's so awesome. I'm sitting here like, wow, I really need to learn more about this because I grew up in a not competitive family and we all would do some activities and play games and occasionally get butt hurt, but we were never like crazy
Yeah.
driven. I never had that sports dad. I mean, I have a older sister, younger sister, and a younger brother. So he's probably the most competitive of us all. But I totally lack that competitive drive,
Oh
and I want
goodness.
to work on it though because I think
That's
I think you're
awesome.
spot on though because I think it really does push you. And I have a story kind of relating competition I'll share later on as well as I've been thinking about this topic and as we dive into it. So, give us a little bit of background. You said growing up, you were always super competitive and
Y-
and was that just because you had older siblings that would push you? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it all came from or where it all started because I mean, my parents in and of themselves aren't necessarily the most competitive individuals, but at the same time, I think it was just like a little bit of healthy sibling rivalry. I say healthy, for the most part, it's healthy, right? But I think what happened is my parents loved to set up like obstacle courses and stuff for us. And
Fun.
so when we were little kids, we would like run all these obstacle courses and we'd constantly be like, chasing each other down and things like that. And so it just kind of inspired in us this little like, oh man, like I wanna be faster than my siblings. I wanna like do it a little bit better than my siblings. And so then over time, as we all got involved in rec soccer leagues and in basketball and whatever it was, then it just kind of like developed a little bit more and more of this competitive side of us. And what's really cool about it, and I mean, again, I can go into many examples on all this if you'd like, but what's really cool about this is that I've found that a lot of the competition that initially started in rivalry and competition developed into competition with myself. And it
Ooh.
became like this healthy drive inside of me where it's like, okay, I know I just did that, but like I can do it better. And I feel like I
Mm,
can do a little bit more. And
that
so
is
like
so
it
interesting.
helped me. Yeah, and it's really helped a ton in just a lot of the, you know, jobs, the education, the different things that I've been doing. And I think it all started, when I was young.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I've tried to work on that inner competition. I know you ran cross country growing up, and I did too. And that a lot of the time you do try to like catch and beat people, but at the same time you're just trying to get a faster time. So you're competing against yourself, which is so fun. Okay, so
Totally.
for everyone listening, how would you define being competitive? Because maybe some people view that differently. So, before we dive into talking about why you're competitive and how that's helped you, and also how we can become more competitive, what would you define that as?
I think a really good definition, well, part of a definition is a quote from Jerry Rice. I love this quote. He says, "Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't." And
Ooh.
I think that competition, yeah, in a nutshell, is kind of just the ability to push yourself, to drive yourself to do something or learn something now so that you will benefit from it later. And so, whether that's pushing yourself on the field as an athlete or whether that's pushing yourself intellectually in your classes, there's a lot of different ways that we can be competitive. But it's the antithesis of being lackadaisical, right?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And when you look at it in that light, you realize how much of a drive is connected to being competitive. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So, why else have you decided to talk about being competitive? What else in you makes you excited to talk about this?
That's a great question. I feel like the majority of the opportunities for growth that I've had, or the opportunities for learning that I've had, have come because I've been willing to, push myself in some direction. Maybe a direction that I've totally felt uncomfortable with, right? So, like, a good recent example is, I had this idea for a startup um, that I needed to have a website built for it, and it had to be a website that people could interact with and kind of like a web app so that people can click on buttons and make purchases and whatever.
Mhm.
And instead of taking the easy route and kind of just being like, well, I can't handle this, maybe I'll find somebody else that I'll just whatever, I'll pay them to figure it out and whatever, right? I decided that I was going to teach myself how to code. So I taught myself, basic code with CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and like learned how to do the front end and the back end and connect payment platforms and
Wow.
whatever. And it took time. It took time, but that time was well spent in my mind because now that's a new skill that I've acquired and that I can continue to build on, right? And so like
Totally.
I feel like the majority of hobbies and talents and skills that I have in this life are because, I've taken the time to learn something or to want to learn something, right? Whereas it's really, really easy to take the opposite route and just be like, no, I'm good. I've got enough talents. Like I'll just leave everything else to everybody else.
I love that. So now we'll jump into the second segment of today's podcast, and that is kind of why should others know about this and how can it benefit them? And you kind of mentioned that not only in sports is this competitive drive helpful, but in your Excel and coding. You also mentioned in test taking and logic abilities and in our careers and our jobs. Let's dive into that. Tell us more about this journey of competitiveness.
Yeah, so let's see. If I'm going to answer the question, why should other people know about this? I think let me find the best way to summarize this. So I feel like if you are willing to push yourself, if you're willing to be a little bit competitive with yourself and sometimes with other people, then you bring out the best of yourself and you're capable of recognizing potential that before you didn't realize you had. And so, for example, an example that comes to mind is I graduated from tax accounting at BYU. So I was in the BYU accounting program, which is it was number 3 in the nation at the time, and then I was in the master's program, which was number 2 in the nation.
Wow.
And so it's a very competitive program. It's a very difficult program. The majority of people that go through it, myself included, had many nights where we cried ourselves to sleep because we
Oh
couldn't finish
no.
everything.
Wow.
So it's a very difficult program, and so when I got accepted into this program, it was some of the top minds in accounting, right, that were sitting there with me, learning the material, and I will readily admit I'm not the smartest person in the room, but at the same time, one thing that I noticed in myself is that as we would learn a topic, I had a desire to learn that topic better than or equal to anybody else in my classes. So despite the fact that I might not be, the naturally most talented, gifted person in accounting, I wanted to know for myself. And so I would take the time. I would, rewatch videos. I would read through pages multiple times. I would summarize 20 pages down into one page of notes for myself so that I could, clearly define what these topics were. I would record videos of myself teaching the topic to myself so that later down the road I could rewatch those videos and realize, the little points that either I had missed or parts that I had forgotten since I had recorded the videos. So it was like things
Wow.
like that where I spent, copious amounts of time to understand the topics, because I knew that I was capable of understanding that.
Hmm.
And that was something just internal to me. When I started learning, I was like, okay, I understand this concept, but I'm confident that I can understand it better. I'm
What
confident that I can make it, natural to me.
what helped you recognize that within yourself? I feel like there is a direct correlation of competitiveness, motivation, and even potential. And I know for me that is so hard to tap into. Like in college I had a
Yeah,
decent GPA, but I never had that drive of I need to know it better than anyone else. I like how did you find that within you? Because I think for me that's the hardest part. Once I get going,
totally.
I don't know, we can talk about this in a minute, but let's talk about how to find that within yourself.
Yeah, and I think it comes from two things. One is just that innate competition that's inside of me that like I want to be better than, other people or myself, right? Which can be a bad thing, but in most cases it's a good thing when I'm competing against myself. And then
Mm.
the second thing that like I kind of want to touch on for a second, is just you have to look at the past, right? I mean, especially this is kind of funny. The scriptures always say, remember, remember. It's the same way, in other aspects of our lives, right? And so I look back at my past and I look at experiences that I've had where I've had wins, right? Where my competitiveness has led me to accomplish something that before I didn't think I could accomplish. And because I was able to do that, I recognize that I'm able to do things today that I don't necessarily, immediately recognize as something that I can accomplish.
Hmm.
So like when I was a kid, I joined the scouting program when I was 11 years old, right? The Boy Scouts, and I was just gung ho. I saw all these kids in my troop that had all these merit badges, and I was one of those kids that I was like, I want to earn all these merit badges, and so I started going at it. And by the time I was 12, I think I had like 36 merit badges, which is probably
Holy
more than
cow.
most people ever get, right?
That's so
Um,
many.
Yeah, yeah, and my older brother, he had participated in the troop. He had gotten his Eagle Scout when he was 16, and inside of myself, I was like, "You know what? I wanna beat that." And
Mm.
so by the time I was 13, I started my Eagle Scout project. And it took me a year, but I was able to fundraise $5,000, buy, build, and install a fitness trail behind my middle school. And so it's like as a young kid, as a 14-year-old, I was
Oh, man.
meeting with organizations around the community. I was meeting with vice principals and principals. I was getting zoning permits for construction in the schools, like all of this crazy stuff at 14 that I had never even considered before. But as I was going through the process, I had to learn it. So
Wow.
today, when I look back on experiences like that and, a myriad of others that I could tell you,
Mhm.
I recognize that, I'm capable of doing things if I'm willing to actually put in the time and effort. And so that's where other things, they become slightly easier and you feel the drive to do it because you recognize it is possible. It's something that is attainable.
Wow. Yeah, me and my friend had a conversation the other day and talking about, so I'm a big runner and we were talking about like where you could go with running, and I was just kind of thinking like I don't think I'll ever try to be like the number one runner in the world or go out and win a race. And we were talking about why I don't have that drive to do that, and it's not a
Hmm.
bad thing, right? Like I can run and
Right.
do races and accomplish my goals. And then we were talking about how, like, those runners who do win races, who do go to the Olympics or to Worlds, they literally sacrifice almost everything to get where they
Yeah.
are. So you have to think about that as you have a drive and motivation to do these things in your lives. How competitive are you? But also, do you think it's the winning mentality? You said you found that within yourself after you were motivated by your brother and you wanted to beat him. So, AKA win and beat him. But then that propelled you to discovering that you could accomplish greater things. So, what do you think helps learn that winning mentality in life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, well, two thoughts. So one, based on like what you were talking about, I guess a really important point that we kind of glossed over is that like you really have to determine what your priorities are,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
if running isn't your priority, that's totally fine. What is it then, right? And so like same thing with, my accounting classes and stuff. Obviously that was a priority for me because, my plan was to go on and get my CPA, which I have, and other things like that and make that a career. And so that was important to me and a priority in my life, right? So obviously, like not everybody's going to be good at everything, but what you prioritize, you can be good at, right? And
I
then
love
what
that.
was
And you
thanks.
prioritize winning or prioritize being the best to kinda spark this competitive drive, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like as soon as you tell yourself, right? If I'm sitting in a class and as soon as I tell myself I can't learn a topic, immediately inside of me, all of these, emotions, feelings, whatever it is, just well up to tell myself I can't do it.
Mm.
Right? Like I've just told myself and now I've convinced myself of that truth, right?
Mm.
But as soon as I tell myself it is possible, then my brain starts looking for ways to make it possible,
Mm.
right? And so I start thinking about like what are different ways that I can try to study or to learn a topic, or what do I need to focus my efforts on, right?
I love that. Let's kind of walk through the process of using competitiveness in maybe your daily life or a project or a goal you're working on right now.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so one recent project that I've been working on is I decided to start my own business doing treasure hunts. So, treasure hunting is kind of a weird thing to get into business doing, but basically what I do is I build essentially like outdoor escape rooms that people can, go onto my website and purchase and go and do for like dates or, group activities or team building exercises or whatever, right? And so when I first had this idea, it was kind of just like, I really enjoy anything that's like a brain game that's going to challenge me or like help me learn something. And so I was like, okay, like that could be a cool thing to kind of, add some brain games into a treasure hunt and make it competitive where you can compete against different groups. And so these were things that like I really enjoyed. Started like putting together some ideas. And now here's like, where competition became a good thing in my life is because I'm accountant, a tax accountant, right? So like, is there any safer field? Pretty much no, right? Like
Right.
that's about as safe as it gets, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like for somebody to look at me in college and be like, oh yeah, he's gonna be an entrepreneur, like no, slim to no chance, right? I was very set on the idea of like getting a job, staying in that job and working in it, and making a paycheck, right? But then because I kind of, I know myself and I know I'm capable of things, and I felt like I wasn't being fully utilized at my past job, I
Mhm.
decided, hey, I need to take this upon myself and I need to do something about it. And so I hopped out of my safe employment that I had, and I
Mm.
decided to start a couple of these businesses. And this, especially this treasure hunting one, is kind of a brand new concept, right? Like nobody's really done it before. There's not really such things as outdoor escape rooms, but here I am creating it from scratch, which means that I have to learn, how to advertise, how to market, how to take videos, how to code, how to build treasure hunts, like all of these things that if I wasn't driven, by some competitive edge to actually, make something happen, to make it a real, business, then none of it would happen, right? It'd be so easy just to turn around and be like, oh, it was a cool idea, but we're done.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, so
And
I
it
feel
takes
like
sacrifice too. Like you said, you left your job and you sacrifice that um what's that word? That comfort,
the safety, yeah,
safety. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
yeah,
And you've sacrificed it now to use your time and efforts into building this, which I admire. I think is great. And I know a lot of people out there are doing some similar things in their lives. They might not be quitting their job, but they're
sure.
starting new companies, and I think it's so
And
awesome
podcasts
that
and
that people are getting out there and doing something that they're passionate about. That's the whole reason we're here is it's a passion in you. So, I
yeah.
know I've been following you and he does these riddles, daily or weekly riddles? Daily riddles, right?
So I do weekly riddles. So
And this
Monday I'll
is
post a riddle every week.
and this is separate from the escape room outdoors, right?
Yeah,
Those
separate from
aren't
the treasure
correlated. Okay.
hunts. No, these are just they're just fun riddles that, I actually I make them,
He
from
creates
scratch,
his
and so
own
I just
riddles,
kind
you
of
guys. That's amazing.
yeah.
I've tried to do a few of them and I don't think I've gotten one of them. I mean, I think I did, but it was after like 5 guesses.
You've
So,
gotten close. You got
yeah.
really
Have
close
you
on a few
already
of them.
done your
Yeah.
riddle today? Should we read it to everyone? And
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
go
I
through
mean,
one of his riddles because this is something
yeah,
he's passionate about.
you
And
might lose my video here for a second, but I gotta pull it up.
and we will post in the show notes where you can find his riddles as well as his outdoor escape rooms, which I look forward to trying. I'm all about getting outside and I got to
Yeah.
work on becoming more competitive. So, step by step,
I
right?
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah, and I'd love to have anybody that wants to come and try them out and reach out to me, and I'm happy to host you and your friends groups or something like that, or you just do it yourselves. But okay, ready for the riddle of the day?
Yes, we're
So
ready.
this is the Monday riddle. Here we go. Catch me in motion and you'll know my verb, but my noun remains hanging, chained ever so firm. I'm found in the action of golf and baseball, or in the quick steps of a southern dance hall.
Oh, I know it. Okay.
Get it?
This is it's swing.
It
Oh
is.
my gosh.
Well
Wow.
done.
That one was easier for me.
That
Yeah.
one's
Okay.
yeah.
Usually it doesn't
Sometimes I'll
take
post
me
some
that
easier ones.
fast.
Sometimes I'll post some
Okay. Yeah.
harder ones,
So that
but
was
I like it when
definitely an
people can get them.
easy
So
one. Let's give them another one. Do you have another one off the
okay,
top of your head? These
yeah.
are
Let
really
me
fun.
see.
Plus, I want
Do
this
you
podcast
want
to
a
be
hard
fun.
one?
Okay, yeah, let's do a hard one. Let's see if anyone listening
Okay.
can get it.
All right. Let's pick a hard one. Here we go. This is we'll pick one of the first ones that I ever posted. So it's probably the first video on my Instagram page. Okay. Here we go. What is filled with time but is finite, is depicted by integers and expires at night. In Brazil or Cape Verde, it's considered a meat, and some say that its homophone tastes sweet.
I don't even know
Now,
what homophone means.
yeah, one caveat to that is where I say that it's considered a meat. So in Brazil or Cape Verde, it's considered a meat. That's MEET, not
Oh,
MEAT.
here I
So
am
you got to look at the
thinking
spelling
of
on that one. But
Okay,
Yeah, like different
MEET,
types of
everybody.
meats, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
and we'll put these riddles in the show notes as well, so if you wanna read them or share them with your family and see if anyone can get them, 'em, we'll do that. Okay, read it to
Sounds
us
good.
one more time.
Okay. What is filled with time but is finite is depicted by integers and expires at night. In Brazil or Cape Verde, it's considered a meat, and some say that its homophone tastes sweet.
I don't even know what homophone is. What is homophone?
So a homophone is
That was quiet.
a word that sounds the same but that has a different meaning.
Oh. Okay, well, you lost me here. I can't
Yeah.
think of anything of what this would be.
I'll be honest, I think out of everybody that I've told this to, and it's been, plenty of thousands of people that have heard it, on reels and whatever,
Mhm.
I think only like two people ever have
Oh
gotten
my
it.
gosh. Okay,
So
well, in that case, what is the answer? Put our
you
minds
want
to
to know it?
ease.
You want me to say it right now? All right. All right. Here we go. The answer is
Yeah,
a date.
like a prune, like the little or
Yeah, so
like
that's the homophone, right? That tastes sweet is like the fruit, right?
mm.
But here, let me say it again. And now that you have that in mind, it'll make
Okay.
sense. Ready?
Mhm.
What is filled with time but is finite is depicted by integers, numbers, right? But expires at night. In Brazil or Cape Verde, it's considered a meat. I'll explain that line.
Okay.
And some say that its homophone tastes sweet,
Interesting.
right? So
Yeah.
so when you think about it, right, a date is a like a date
Is
on a
it a
calendar or
fig?
whatever.
Is it Oh, not like a fig. I was
Uh,
thinking the
nope,
fruit.
like a date on a calendar, right? Because like a date
Oh
on a calendar
my
is like
gosh, wow,
it's
okay.
filled with time. It's filled with
I was
time,
thinking of
but it is finite. Yeah,
that little
just
fruit
the
candy
fruit,
thing.
right?
Okay, this is a date on the calendar, everybody. We're clear. The answer to the riddle is a date on the calendar. Okay, now
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
So it's filled with time, but it's a finite period of time, right? So it ends, right? So
Mhm.
it's what is filled with time but is finite is depicted by integers. So on a calendar, we look at a date as like a number, right?
Numbers.
1, 2, 3,
Totally.
whatever the
Yeah.
date, and it expires at night. So every night, it's a new date, right? And
Mm.
then in Brazil or Cape Verde, so what's interesting in Portuguese, which is spoken in both Brazil and Cape Verde, in Portuguese, to go on a date like with somebody is called encontro, which literally just means to meet, right? And
Hmm.
so in Brazil or Cape Verde, it's considered a meet. Encontrar is the verb to meet, and so it's like I'm going on encontro, a date, but it also means a meet, right? Anyway, and then some say it's homophone tastes sweet because the homophone is the fruit that you were thinking of, right?
Mm.
And so the fruit tastes sweet, but the actual word that we're solving for was like a date, as
Okay,
in
that
like
makes
on
sense.
the calendar.
I think the same is true for Russian. The Russian, like, to meet is date as well. I
There we
think.
go.
Yeah, it's been a minute,
Perfect.
but
Yeah,
way cool. So,
that's
if you
awesome.
want to get competitive with your friends and family, look up his riddles every week. Do you post them on Monday?
I post them on Monday. Yep,
Okay.
sometime between like 3 and 5 or something. You'll
Yeah,
see
and
them.
it's on his Instagram at Hidden Treasures?
Hidden hunts.
Hidden Hunts. At
Hidden
Hidden Hunts.
hunts.
This will all be in the show notes. I'll put the links on YouTube and you can just click right into it and check them out and try some past riddles. They're sometimes super hard. I thought I was good
Yeah,
at
some.
riddles, but the more I do them, the less I'm like, okay, just kidding. If they're not easy, I have no idea. Okay, so
That's awesome.
for the last segment of today's podcast, we're going to kind of jump right back into our competitive conversation and
Sure.
talk about how this can be a takeaway for us today or whenever you're
Yeah.
listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the first thing that comes to mind on this topic is I'm sure, you've heard of or read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? By Stephen
Yeah,
Covey.
great.
And one thing that Stephen Covey talks about is to establish kind of um, like a life mission statement, right? And so like when you go through, you sit down and you kind of like walk through different points of your life and you write down like this is my mission statement for XYZ, right? And so for work, it might be something along the lines of I will, arrive on time at work every day and I will put in, necessary effort in my team to be a benefit to them and to pick up projects from other teams or something like that, right? Where it's
Nice.
like
Yeah.
things that you want to do and that you are establishing goals for yourself to do. And I think that, having some type of like, competitive drive in you is very healthy when it comes to establishing these goals. And then when it comes to actually making the goals happen, right? And so, like, ultimately, you're not going to accomplish anything out of the ordinary if you continue acting in ordinary ways, right?
Mm,
And so you have to kind of push yourself a little bit in order to accomplish things that you weren't able to accomplish before, or that you aren't able to accomplish doing things the way that you're doing right
yeah.
now.
Let's
And
say what you just said again. You can't accomplish anything extraordinary if you don't stray from not doing the ordinary. I don't know. You said it more profoundly. Will you repeat what you said?
that's a great question. It just kind of came to my head. Yeah, you can't accomplish anything extraordinary if you continue doing things in an ordinary way,
There you have it. That's my takeaway
right?
for today. Yeah, it's so true.
Awesome.
And here I am,
Yeah.
like, as we've been talking, I've been thinking, okay, like, what are little things I can do every day to build this competitive drive within myself? And I think about when I go running, most of the time it's by myself, but when I have other people with me, I try to keep up a better pace, or you can do races with your friends and it's super fun. Or when I do track
Yeah.
workouts, if anyone wants to come do a track workout with me, let me know. It's always helpful to have more people running with me. But I've also been thinking about healthy competition within other aspects of my life. What are some little things you do that help you build that every day?
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing that so for example, we talked earlier, about a couple of things that I'm passionate about, and one of them that I mentioned was the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and for me, when I was a young kid, it was pretty difficult. I'm sure everybody can relate. It was pretty difficult to study your scriptures every day, right? It was just like,
Still is.
even today, yeah, even today, right? Like, we
Mm-hmm.
still, like, have some struggles with that. And what was really cool is that my seminary teacher, when I was a sophomore in high school, or no, junior in high school, she gave us a little calendar, and it had a day for each day, and it said, when you read your scriptures that day, you can check it off, right? And so that became a thing for me, where it was like, oh man, I want to check that box, like, I want to get the full calendar. And so I started reading the scriptures every day. And to this day, I found that the scriptures are just like absolutely beautiful, and like I learn so much every time that I sit down and read them. But sometimes, like, the motivation isn't there, right? Sometimes it's just hard to get motivated to do it. But what I've realized is that, I can set goals for myself that will help motivate me. So I
Mm.
set goals for
Okay.
myself to, find spiritual thought, at least one every day, right? Or maybe even to write those spiritual thoughts down and maybe develop a talk from it, just for fun or whatever, right? Not maybe not
Mm.
for fun, but like as a practice, right? And so it's like things like that where, I know what I want to accomplish, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it just takes me establishing some goals, and like maybe finding a way to be a little bit more driven or competitive to accomplish those goals, right?
I
Instead
love
of
that.
things, yeah, instead of, I see, sorry, this, I keep rambling, but
You're good.
this is one thing that I see far too often, and I'm definitely guilty of it as well. But people all the time will just say it's impossible, or I can't do it, or that's not for me. Like, those are cop out words, right? Those are words where it's basically you're telling yourself, "Oh yeah, like, I just don't want to do it. So I'm just going to say it's impossible and move on." Right? Like, it's
Mm.
just, you make up an excuse and then you don't accomplish something, right? And I guarantee you, like, I have been so happy with every righteous decision I've made, or every decision I've made to go forward and to learn and do something. And I've been so disappointed in myself when I've let those opportunities slip by.
Mm.
And so it's
Another
like,
good
you
plug.
don't
Yeah.
let them slip by.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I've had a few thoughts as you've been talking, one of which was just fun, competitive things that I can start doing. Like I said, to build that competitive drive. And I think back to me and my friend in high school one day just printed off like mixed times table sheets, and we had a race who could fill them out the
Yeah.
fastest.
Love
But I
that.
think with most of us in our careers, and I think I heard this on another podcast, but you make work a game, and that brings in that competitiveness, and it makes it more fun too. Like, if you think about the tasks you have on your to do list, and then think about how you can make it a game, or like you with your scripture study, finding those little ways to make it that much more intriguing, that much more available in the sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment, then we're more propelled to actually do the thing. I also did the check mark boxes, spurred from my institute teacher, just
Love
saying,
it.
okay, like every day, just put it on your door before you leave, like check it off. And it really helped
Yeah.
build that routine because ultimately we want our lives to be filled with meaningful, purposeful routines. And I think
Totally.
being competitive gets the ball rolling and we get that momentum.
Absolutely. I
So
love that.
cool. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of
I
course.
love talking about how to be more competitive because I want to be, and
This is
I'm down
great.
for challenges, right?
Yeah, Natalie, bring it on.
If
Let's
you
let's
see
do
your
it.
goals as challenges, I think they really are more fun, and I am all about fun. I think I have a hard
Yeah.
time seeing myself as like a crazy hard worker competitive sometimes because I just am invested in having fun. But when I try to like connect the two, then I realize you can do both. Generally it is work hard, play hard, but there I try to
Yeah.
find that connection because
It's
it
totally
makes it more
possible.
fun. Yeah.
Agreed.
Cool. Well, again, thank you. And everyone, you can find out more about Daniel in our show notes. I'll leave a little bio there, as well as where to find all the fun things he's working on, like the riddles, as well as the outdoor, what do you call it? Outdoor escape room type thing?
Escape rooms, yeah, treasure hunts,
Treasure
whatever.
hunts. Yeah, that's
Yep.
so fun. And I hope you all can just think of something today to be a little more competitive. Maybe that's playing a little game on your phone and getting a higher score. Maybe that's sending something to your friends and having a contest. I hope
Or
this
even setting a
podcast
goal to do it, you
Oh,
know?
yeah, even setting a goal to do
Love
it.
it.
I hope this podcast can be somewhat of an outlet for that. I love trivia, I love riddles, so if you keep tuning in, we're gonna have a mix of all sorts of things. So, thank you again. Thanks, Daniel, and we'll talk to you
Thank
next
you.
week. Spread the light, light the passion. Bye. Thank you.